Let's dive into my sketchbook and the journey of my old artworks, starting all the way back to when I was a kid. Some of these pieces might surprise you, or even make you laugh. Here are some of my earliest drawings. This is where it all began. Here's a frog? I don't know what I was thinking, but I even added duct tape to make it better. A birthday party scene. What a nice world. But wait, a world full of snakes? I really need to explain this one to myself. And of course, the classic sun in the corner. Oh, and look, palm trees the same size as cacti, plus random fishes floating around. And here we go again, another sun in the corner. Classic me as a kid. Nice drawing, but I have no clue what the story behind this one is. Now this one. If anyone knows who these characters are, please let me know in the comments, because I have no idea. Still, I think it's fun to look at. Okay, this one caught my eye. I liked the design back then, but why is the bird's leg so huge? Seriously, look at it. Here's a cherry, I think, and that's supposed to be the shadow. I believe I used watercolor or acrylic paint for this, but I'm not entirely sure. This one's titled Panda Room, and that's all I remember about it. Moving on. This one was also a school project. We were told to draw lavender and a scene step by step. It's nice to see how much effort I put into it. And this one, I think it was inspired by a video. The colors are faint, but I love how the eyes and the rose turned out. So cute. All right, let me organize these papers real quick so it's easier to go through them. Now let's move on to some studies I did when I got a little older. This one is a long hair study I did with colored pencils. I remember being so proud of it at the time. The details were a big step for me, and honestly, I still like how it looks. This piece reminds me a little of Alice in Wonderland. Anyone else feel the same vibe? Ah, my entry for a Cartoon Network competition. Guess what? I didn't win, but hey, it's the effort that counts. Here's my first attempt at abstract art using soft pastels. Now, this is where I actually started learning how to draw. Tissue studies, shoes, it's all from 2015. You can see the mistakes, but that's what makes it fun to look back at. Last one for this set, a little watercolor experiment. I think it turned out pretty well. All right, now we're diving into the 2017 to 2019 era. I love the cover of this sketchbook. It really brings me back to those years. So here's an uncompleted drawing. I started it but ended up erasing it. Sometimes the ideas just don't come together, and that's okay. These are eyes studies, honestly not my favorite. I was experimenting with different expressions. Happy, scared, and sleepy. Not exactly groundbreaking, but I had fun. Here's a car I drew. Now, I don't know much about cars, but I do know this is a Mercedes. That's about all I can tell you. And here's a dog. Simple, but cute. Sometimes the charm is in the simplicity. I did this house drawing back then, and for a while, I was convinced I would become an architecture major. But that didn't happen. Funny how things turn out, right? These are some trees I drew with ink. I was experimenting with line work and textures. Here's a simple mountain scene. I wasn't quite sure how to capture landscapes back then. Here's an unfinished piece I really like, especially the smooth transition from pink to blue. The colors just speak to me. I remember doing this golden fish mandala, and I'm still really proud of it. The symmetry and design came out beautifully. Here's a candle. I really like how it turned out, but looking at it now, I'd tweak a few things. Still, I'm happy with it overall. This is when I first got into houses and urban sketching. It was a new passion, and I enjoyed every minute of it. Here, I tried to create something inspired by the Scream. It wasn't exactly what I envisioned, but I enjoyed the process of experimenting with expression. I tried Inktober that year, but as you can see, I only did one drawing. And here's a robin. The eyes came out so cute, and the colors are pretty nice too. This one is still my favorite. Looking at it now, I see some mistakes, but I'm still proud of how it turned out. Here's another study of a house. I kept experimenting with different architectural styles back then. I did a couple more mandalas, including one with gold ink. Unfortunately, I ran out of gold ink, so I couldn't finish it, but I was really into this style at the time. This one is a split study of the moon and the sun. I wanted to see how the two could contrast and balance each other. And here's an unfinished drawing of Sherlock Holmes. And I almost forgot this cute bird I drew when I was a kid. Let's dive into my 2018-2019 drawings. As I mentioned before, I was really interested in drawing villages and scenic views using pencil during this time. It's simple but carries a lot of charm. The contrast of the light and shadows was something I focused on, and I think it turned out pretty well. I also attempted to draw Stitch during this period. Fun fact, I ran out of ink 3 times while working on it and never managed to finish it. The guitar is the only thing left. Maybe one day I'll sit down and finally complete it. This was also the year I explored Arabic calligraphy. It was such a fun and unique experience to experiment with the flowing shapes and intricate patterns of the letters. It felt like creating art within the words themselves. Here, I tried using pen and watercolor to create a vibrant village scene. Here's another peaceful scene. A quiet boat resting on the water. I remember being really proud of how the reflections turned out. This next one is another charming scene of a village surrounded by nature. I enjoyed experimenting with different textures for the trees and grass to give it a realistic feel. Oh, and I even attempted to draw Harry Potter. All right, let's continue with more village sketches to round out 2019. I love the process of capturing little details like windows, chimneys, and the natural surroundings. That's it for 2019. Let's jump into my 2020 sketchbook. Don't mind the first page, it was just me experimenting with the tools. The first proper drawing is of Among Us. Remember how popular the game was in 2020? I can still recall the stress of trying to input the code fast before the room filled up. This one remains one of my favorite drawings. I really like the details. Next is a bird sketch. There was a challenge online to draw this specific bird, so I gave it a shot. For this drawing, I experimented with watercolor pencils for the first time. I really liked the texture of the fur and how the leaves turned out. This piece was inspired by a reference I found on Pinterest. It was another watercolor experiment, and I enjoyed working with the medium. On the first day of 2020, I drew this bird using colored pencils. Here's an unfinished piece. I lost the reference photo, but if I ever find it, I'd love to complete it. Around this time, I was watching Teen Wolf and attempted to draw Styles. Let's just say this didn't look like him at all. Afterward, I started practicing human anatomy. Then, I tried my hand at a mandala. I'm really happy with how detailed it turned out. Here's my first attempt at drawing a horse using charcoal. I think it's a solid start for my first try. This puppy drawing didn't turn out as I'd hoped. In 2020, I also started watching The Good Doctor and drew Dr. Sean. I like how the drawing turned out, though I made his neck a bit too long. Here's an illustration of fish I made using pen. The intricate details were really fun to work on. I drew Polar Bear from We Bare Bears. He's such a cute character, and I couldn't resist sketching him. Around this time, I participated in a challenge by Kesh Art, a YouTuber, to draw for at least 7 minutes every day. I followed it for a week, and it really sparked my interest in drawing animals. These are some random scribbles I made during the challenge. Here's an Arabian fox I drew wearing a jacket. Next is a village scene. I think this one turned out pretty well. This piece was another experiment with watercolor pencils and pen. I also painted a cake using watercolor. This drawing of Iron Man was inspired by a YouTube tutorial. Here's a sketch of Yang Yang, a Chinese actor. I also drew a blue jay. Birds were becoming a frequent subject for me around this time. This balloon dog drawing is another piece I really like. The details came out great. This smoothie sketch was done the day before my final exam for nutrition. It felt fitting to draw something related to the subject. Next is a Star Wars-inspired drawing. Here's a dog sketch that I'm really proud of. This charcoal drawing of a boat on the water is one of my favorites. The details of the water and reflections are something I worked hard on. I also did a charcoal study of different textures and shadows. This was pose practice. It helped me improve proportions and movement in my sketches. I started a drawing of Thor, but I didn't finish it. Still, I think it has potential. Here's a soft pastel scene I attempted, but it didn't turn out quite as I'd hoped. Next is a pen drawing of Venice, Italy. The perspective was challenging, but I managed to complete it. This dog with a butterfly on its nose is such a cute drawing. I still smile whenever I see it. And here's another horse sketch. This one's a fun piece, a chicken enjoying a day at the beach. It makes me miss summer. I also started drawing Dr. House, but didn't finish it. Last page of 2020. And that wraps up my 2020 sketchbook. Let's move on to 2021. Now we're in 2021. I'll go through these quickly because there are a lot of drawings to cover. Most of the pieces here are of animals, some complete, some not. But the most important thing is to keep going, no matter what. This is a drawing of a mynah bird. I was happy with how it turned out at first, but then I added a green background and, well, I feel like it didn't work. I used markers to create this abstract piece. It was just about experimenting and having fun. I posted this coconut study on YouTube. Feel free to check it out. Here's my very first watercolor scene painting. I followed a YouTube tutorial for this one, and I was so proud of finishing it. Watercolor studies followed. Each piece helped me understand the medium better. This is a quick charcoal drawing I did. A Harry Potter-inspired watercolor painting, him going to Hogwarts. It's far from perfect, but I like it. This charcoal portrait of Doctor Who, well, the face ended up looking more like a mask, but experimenting with shadows and tones was a good exercise. No comment about this fashion piece. Another still life study with a reference. I'm so proud of this one. The details and shading came out beautifully. And here's another piece featuring wee bears. This one was just for fun. More watercolor studies. Each time, I tried to push myself a little further. This bird singing was one of my favorite watercolors. I love the purple feathers. They're so vibrant. This was a charcoal study I followed from a YouTube tutorial. I loved working on the patterns and details of the animal, as well as the background. I learned so much from this one. The final drawing of 2021 is a horse and dog. Let's step into 2022 and 2023. The first drawing kicks things off with a beautifully detailed animal head. Why didn't I finish it? Who knows? At the beach, surrounded by the sounds of the waves, I sketched a boat drifting peacefully in the ocean. It's simple, but captures the moment perfectly. At the start of the year, I was full of motivation. New year, new me. I decided to sketch daily, starting with a wolf enjoying some watermelon, and a cute little rabbit. It was such a fun way to keep the momentum going. This pen and pencil study was all about mastering shading and light. Back to the We Bare Bears universe. This time, Polar Bear decided to take a nap in the fridge. Honestly, can you blame him? Watercolors always feel magical to me. This bird painting is no exception. The vibrant colors make it one of my favorite pieces from this year. Here's a monkey with a mobile phone. Why did I draw it? No clue. Koala study. They're just too adorable not to draw, aren't they? Next up, penguins. Quick and simple, but there's something charming about their little forms. This one's a bit quirky. Cats hitting the books and studying for exams. I must have been channeling my own study stress into this drawing. A cactus terrified of a balloon. Sometimes the simplest concepts end up being the most fun. An unfinished bird drawing in charcoal. Let's talk about this dog sketch. It was supposed to showcase its patterns, but they feel a bit off. I took on a challenge to draw eyes in different shapes. My early attempts were just okay, but then I watched a tutorial, and wow, what a difference. Tutorials are game changers. A horse study that turned out quite elegant. Here's a sloth study in charcoal. A Dilophosaurus from Ark Survival Evolved. A bored cat playing with a toy. Back to watercolors, a study of a blue jay. This angry giraffe was inspired by a funny zoo photo I saw. Its expression was just too good not to capture. Here's a bear study with a twist. The bears have their own little storyline. One says hi, another replies hello, and before you know it, they're planning a game of hide and seek while someone snaps photos. A charcoal study of a cat. Budgie studies. One of them even looks like it's rocking flip-flops. This was a challenge to draw a girl struggling with an umbrella. It really pushed me out of my comfort zone. Another challenge, drawing a beach scene. This rabbit and snowman drawing has such a cozy, wintry vibe. It's one of my favorites from the season. This charcoal animal study didn't win me over at first, but looking back now, I can appreciate the textures and details. Drawing cars is tough. I found that out while sketching this Lexus. It really taught me how tricky perspectives can be. To welcome 2023, I sketched a person unwrapping a gift. Still life studies are always satisfying. This vase piece felt simple but rewarding. Charcoal watermelon. Who knew a fruit could be so dramatic? It's one of my favorite still life pieces. This plain sketch in charcoal was all about the details. Here's Puss in Boots, drawn right after I watched the movie. These two pieces were for YouTube videos. They were quick but fun to work on. I did a bunch of watercolor studies during this time. It was all about experimenting and learning. Reverse coloring is such a wild challenge. You start with random colors and then draw what you see. The results are unpredictable but so fun. This head study focused on the neck and eyes. It was a great exercise for understanding anatomy. A toothpaste challenge. The idea was to draw an animal coming out of a toothpaste tube. The last drawing of 2023 was a quick study. It was short but sweet. A nice way to close the year. 2023 and 2024 drawings. In 2023, I focused on exploring new techniques and improving my skills. A watercolor still life study of a vase, simple yet beautiful. An unfinished painting of lilac, a gentle reminder that art is about the journey, not just the final result. Another watercolor still life painting, guided by a tutorial. A house painted with watercolors, a scene full of charm. For a unique challenge, I drew a horse upside down. This technique forces you to focus on shapes rather than preconceived notions. I was pleasantly surprised by how well it turned out. A delicate cloud study, simple, serene, and peaceful. One of my favorites, a watercolor scene with colorful stairs and leaves cascading over rocks. Some other watercolor scenes that I'll let speak for themselves. They hold a special place in my heart. The last drawing for 2023 is another horse study. Now moving to 2024. Unfortunately, I don't have my sketchbook with me, but the video will showcase this year's creations. As we scroll through these drawings, I want to remind you that art is a journey, not a destination. Every piece, whether complete or unfinished, holds value because it shows your effort and willingness to grow. It's okay to experiment, make mistakes, or feel that something didn't turn out as planned. That's where real learning happens. Remember, progress doesn't always show in the moment, but when you look back, you'll see how far you've come. Push yourself to try new things, but don't forget to enjoy the process. Art is about expressing yourself and finding joy in creation, not perfection. Be proud of every step you take, because each one adds to your story as an artist. And that's the end of this artistic journey. Thank you for exploring it with me. I hope it inspires you to create, grow, and embrace your unique path as an artist.